GJ Math. Chapter 2 in the grade 12 syllabus deals with functions and inverses. So this is the function section of grade 12, but if you look at final exams, junior exams, then it counts very little. So the traditional functions question counts about 30 to 35 marks in your final exam, with grade 12 functions only counting less than 5, I would say. So grade 11 functions is still way more important, but to get all your marks, you must understand this chapter as well. Luckily, it's a lot easier than last year. But let's go through it, and hopefully you learn something and they won't catch you out. So what is an inverse? The inverse of any function you get when you swap x and y. Okay, so as you can see in the GIF on the right, you would reflect it around the line y equals x. But what that means is if you have an equation, x becomes y and y becomes x. If you have a graph, then x and y would swap. Every coordinate would swap. Asymptotes would swap around. So if with an exponential function, your x-axis is the asymptote. Now with a log function, the y-axis would be the asymptote. So everything just swaps, even the domain and range. So later on, you would see the domain becomes the range, and the range becomes the domain. If I talk between fx and f to the power minus 1x, the original and the inverse. So let's look how we would apply this to algebra type questions. So if they give you the equation of any function and they ask you for the inverse, the steps would be you swap x and y, then you follow your algebra rules to get y alone again. Let's go through a few examples so you can see exactly what you need to do. And it doesn't really get more complicated than this. So if you can understand it, this is 3 marks. Okay, question A. If my equation is y is equal to 4x minus 5, the inverse, step 1, would be if I swap x and y. So this would just be 4y minus 5. Now I need to start the process to get y alone again. I need to move that minus 5 to the other side, so it becomes x plus 5 equals 4y, and I want y alone. So I'm just going to reorder, and I'm going to divide by 4. So you have 2 options. You can leave it like this, or you can say it is a quarter x plus 5 over 4. Both of them would give you full marks. Just depends on what you prefer. The way I wrote it on the right, I can now clearly see what is the y-intercept and what is the gradient. So that's the advantages if you go a step further to just rewrite it in simplest form as a straight line. Okay, question B. I would swap x and y. Okay, and then I need to get y alone again. So x minus 4 is equal to minus a half y. I want to get y alone, so I'm going to multiply everything by minus 2. So that would be minus 2x plus 8. And there we go. That is the inverse. In question C, so this is a parabola or a quadratic equation. So to do the inverse, I swap x and y. So 4y squared, and then I need to get y alone again. So I'm just going to divide by 4. So this becomes x over 4 is equal to y squared. And then remember, to get rid of a squared, I put the square root. But because I put my own square root, I need to put a plus minus in front of it. Later in this chapter, we're going to talk a lot more about that specific case. And when is it a plus minus and when is it not? But for now, if you put your own square root, remember the plus minus. Question D, just going to swap first. So it would just look like this. The squared stays there, plus 2. First thing, I'm going to take over the plus 2. That becomes x minus 2 on the other side. And remember, I can rewrite this as y squared over negative 3. Now I know I just want to multiply the minus 3 to the other side. And it would look like this. And that's y squared. So then, to get my final answer, you cannot choose if you want to multiply into the bracket or not. I'm just going to leave it just like this. So I remember my plus minus, and then minus 3x minus 2. So I just made an extreme example. I have never seen one like this in a final exam, but just follow the rules, and you will get your full marks. Okay, question E and F now deals with exponential functions. Now, in a previous video, or you can just check on this playlist, I will link a video for logs. The inverse of an exponential equation is always a log function. So let's just do these ones, and then I'll remind you of how we get the inverse. So step 1, swap x and y. X becomes 4 to the power y. Now remember with logs, the base stays the base and the others swap around. So I'm going to put in a log. The 4 is the number at the bottom, and then the other 2 swap around. So y goes there, x goes there. I'm done. That is the answer. Question F, swap x and y. So minus 2 to the power y minus 3. So this becomes x plus 3 equals minus 2 to the power y. Okay, so now with logs, it's very important. if I look at this number or this number, it's not allowed to have a negative value. So if I do the sum in f, I can't have log and then my base minus 2. So because my base can't be minus 2, I would just put a minus on the other side. And then I would say this is going to be 2 to the power y. Okay, so now to rewrite this into log form, put a log, the base stays the base, and then the others swap around. Now I'm going to multiply in that minus, so then it would be minus x minus 3. Okay, so I just said it's not allowed to be a minus, but x can be anything, including negative numbers. So I must just put a little restriction there. So I must just say, I know the inside value must be greater than 0. So therefore minus x is greater than 3, and therefore x would be smaller than negative 3. So if I just put that with my sum, they can't catch me out, and I will have full marks. There we go. Those are a few examples of the equations you can expect in which they would ask you to find the inverse. I don't think it was too tricky, but just go back and recheck these examples if you got stuck somewhere.
If this video helped you, please like and subscribe.
JJ, man.